Hey folks, welcome back to Licksmas. It's day 9 today. It's me again. My third and last lick of the series, and it's sad, but I look forward to doing this again, ideally next year. It's really truly been such an honor to do this project with some of my nearest and dearest banjo friends, and again, I'm very excited to do more stuff like this in the future. So let's get into this lick. Here's how it goes. So, what's going on here? Well, this lick is particularly driven by groups of 5. Some of you may have experimented with this before, but we're in a 4/4 time signature, and we have eighth notes, but they're divided in 5. So if you've ever done stuff where you're like giving yourself a solid pulse, and you're speaking 5s, let's say, I guess 16ths in this case, that 1 Eana, 2 Eana, give yourself 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. You'll see that it gets displaced each time, and after 5 repetitions, you land back on 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Right? They practice this a lot in Hindustani music, the music of India, where they'll have their own rhythmic solfege system called sargam. I actually learned this system partially from a really great teacher I had at Oberlin. His name is Jamie Haddad, just a master percussionist, but he would teach me stuff of the Hindustani tradition where you would sing like ta di ki na tum for 5, like ta di ki na tum, ta di ki na tum, ta di ki na tum, ta di ki na tum. And that being said, you can do this with any syllables. Sometimes it's hard. I mean, I honestly find it hard to count in English. The Hindustani method is designed to be sort of easy to speak, because the whole idea is that you can speak it. If you watch Indian musicians play live, you'll see often that they'll speak the rhythms when they play it. There's some great videos out there, but a lot of speaking involved in terms of using it to help yourself embody these rhythms. And here, I think that's a very valuable lesson here, because a lot of these things, you see them written on a page, but I want you to be able to understand, or I think it's very beneficial to be able to understand the rhythmic sort of utility and theory here. That being said, I do think that you don't actually need to accent each 5. So in other words, you could sort of follow the way that I've beamed this by 2s and not think so much about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You can abandon that phrasing, that really emphasized 5 phrasing, and go for a 4 feel, where you're still emphasizing regular quarter notes of 4/4 without what would you call it? Giving it like a metric dissonance. So that was me trying really hard to not really accent those 5s. But for example, how this would sound if I say accented every 2. This is my first time trying this, so pardon me. See what I mean? It's not as obvious now that we're in 5. You don't need to think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can think 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Not that you would feel it like that, but in other words, just giving yourself a pulse. Hopefully you can hear this through the microphone. See what I did there? I'm just thinking in 2s. 1, 2, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and... So, don't be intimidated by the 5s. I explain all that because I want you to understand sort of what's going on. But you don't need to think about that, and I actually don't think anyone really would think about it like that if they're playing. Apart from the 5s, let's talk a little bit about subdivisions. if you go over on the tab that I attached on Patreon, if you go over to measure 26, I have this notated and tabbed, this basic 2 and 3 exercise. 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3. Now this might look more familiar because those of you who studied the bluegrass canon and studied all the great Earl Scruggs breaks, you'll see plenty of combinations of 2s and 3s. Usually we're, adding up to 8 and we're doing 3 3 2 for a basic forward roll. That kind of thing. We're used to that. So again, I think sometimes people teach 5 and 7, all these complicated groupings that we don't see in equal time in common time signatures. They teach them with this sort of idea that you have to really understand what 5 is and think about it as 5. But really, all of these things can be subdivided. We can make all of these numbers smaller. And so, in the mind of a banjo player, once you start thinking about 2 and 3, suddenly it becomes easier because it looks familiar. And there's a lot of things you can do with this. As you can see, I notated here, gave it little carrots, little accent marks, 1, 2, 3, 4, after every cycle of 5. So you can see what that feels like. So for example, I'll give myself a solid pulse of quarter notes, and I'll accent every 5. So I'm playing measure 26 as written with the accents. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. If I do that faster, the groove will start to come out a bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. It's very groovy stuff. It's a lot of fun. And suddenly, as I said, 5s are less intimidating. And as you see, I talk about polyrhythm. This is a really cool thing. It's because we have accenting every 5. We have a total of equidistant. We have 4 notes that are equidistant. On top of the 5 measures, meaning that I guess you could look at it like every half note is every half note for the 5 measures equals 5. So you have 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, 2, right? Because it's 5 bars. 5 bars are 2, 2, 4. And then on top of that, we have the 8th notes accented every 5. So you get equidistant a 4 and then an equidistant 5. So it's a 5 against 4 polyrhythm. There's a lot of tricks. People talk about how to feel this. They give you syllables like, I'm looking for a house to buy, right? If you've ever heard stuff like nice cup of tea for the 2 against 3, nice cup of tea, that kind of thing. It's very similar to the idea that I was talking about a few minutes ago about the Indian solfege system of sargam. These are just sort of, they're not syllables, but we're putting it into phrases, we're using language. English words in this case to bring out an understanding of rhythm vocabulary. So when you learn polyrhythms like nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea, 2 against 3, that is, 1 cup of tea, nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea, nice cup of tea, or pass the bread and butter, pass the bread and butter, that's 4 against 3, 3 against 4, pass the bread and butter, and then I'm looking for a house to buy, that kind of thing. I have a hard time doing that 5/4 as well, but I think it's really cool to see that sort of zoomed in into detail, where we can see, in this case, 5 bars of 2 accenting every 5/8 notes, getting us that intrinsic 5/4 polyrhythm. That with doing some math and without thinking too hard about syllables of polyrhythms, you can achieve that polyrhythm. So I hope that makes sense. I think it's really cool stuff to explore, and it's just very helpful in terms of practicing rhythm. In addition, this is stuff that you can absolutely apply to to your banjo playing. This is totally, in my mind, very banjoistic and very applicable to bluegrass, very applicable to just banjo playing in general. I mean, we've all heard, as I said earlier, the 3-3-2, but you can still, in a 4-4 context or a 2-4, in an equal time, even number, I guess, context, you can still play these groups of fives. And catch yourself, before you fall over, So, it's very cool. I'm not sure there's much more I wanted to say about it. Oh, right, one more thing about the twos and the 2 and 3. I know I said earlier at the beginning that thinking about this lick at measure, the initial lick for the first 5 measures, they're groups of fives, but you'll actually find that the way that I'm emphasizing the notes is 2 and 3. Again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. See what I mean? So it can be thought of as 5, but all these things can also be divided, and I think that's how you make these learning these kinds of things a little bit less intimidating. Let's talk briefly about the variations. I wanted to stress the idea of rhythmic displacement because it's very important. If we are practicing these groups of 5s or 2s and 3s, often we're starting on the downbeat. We often treat the downbeat as sort of our almost like training wheels, if you will. Like it's the little, the safety bar we hang on to catch our footing. But we have to get away from that too, especially just for deepening our understanding and our intrinsic feelings of these groupings. So, variation number 1, I push this back by a quarter note in case it isn't clear. The emphases, whatever, are in different places as well, so the groove is different. This is much easier to understand when you hear it, and it's much easier to hear it when it's faster. So I'll give an example of playing all 3 with my handy metronome so you can hear, just to very tangibly demonstrate this displacement phenomenon that I've been talking about. So here we go. Here, let's let our metronome go. 1, 2, 3. It's kind of slow, just so you can hear it and I can play it. Let's put it that way. So here's lick number 1, standard first beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty good. Starting on beat 4. 1, 2, 3. Very satisfying to make that beat each time, right? And here comes a challenging one. The 8th note getting pushed back by 1/8 note. So remember, when you want to do this, it's sometimes easy to count those upbeats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and... And if that's too hard, you can also do as I sort of said earlier, the safety bar exercise for the 8th note and anticipation, where you can add an extra note beforehand so you can still just start on a downbeat, start on 4 in this case. So instead of thinking like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, instead of worrying about catching that upbeat, for those of you that are still working on that, you can just add an extra note beforehand and start on 4. Let's make it the first string. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Right, so now we can play variation number 2 starting on beat 4, just adding an extra first string on beat 4, right? So with the metronome, let's see if I can do this. 1, 2, 3. See? Just a nice, nice way to make that a little bit easier. I would like to touch upon the shapes we're using for the first 3 measures of all these licks and variations. Let's talk about that. If you defer to measure 36 on the tab. So the shapes we're using, I think the best way to put it is sixths with an extra ornament. I mean, like a neighbor tone. So we're basically just diatonically harmonizing a scale. Like most of you, of course, have done that. But so I put that here at measure 36 in cells of 4, because 4 is, you know, easier, just to simplify it. So we can think 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And descending. Right, so it's a handy shape. I think it's a great utility just because you can, sort of like the licks that Ricky was talking about, these classic Bela licks. It's a similar thing where you can put the 5th string to use and use it as a little ornament. You can go back and forth. And from using the 5th string open, oscillating back and forth from using the 5th string open to closed. You hear people you hear Bela Fleck do that all the time. And so it's handy. Lastly, I supplied an E minor pentatonic scale exercise. You might be wondering, why did I randomly include an E minor exercise? Well, you see, if you look at the 4th measure of the first lick, and same for variations, you have this. This shape. And of course, I guess I didn't touch on that. We have a few different variations of that ending lick because I wanted it to always align and end on a downbeat, because again, I want this to be applicable to inserting this lick in common repertoire tunes or jams. You know, I want this to be useful, not just an exercise. So you can see me adjust a little bit, me adding for example, this E here, the 4th string of the 14th fret on variation 1 and 2, and that's really, just to clarify, I'm only adding that to give an extra note of the scale, just for melodic interest, because I needed an extra note or two for the variation, so I could still have a phrase akin to the ending phrase of the first lick while still ending on that downbeat of that 5th measure, right? So you will notice they're a little bit different from one another, but it's just because I needed to make everything align and land on the first beat. So the shapes, as you can see, we have this sort of unusual shape where we have, you know, the thumb wrapping around to the 12, and we have this thing going on. This sort of like, you know, A sus2 shape, if you want to name it anything. But regardless, this shape is very important because you have a pentatonic scale, but you also just get an excellent range, and you can take your, if you have big enough hands, take your pinky around and move it, and to get different melodies. I just think it's a very handy shape, and you can, again, what you would usually play with shifting positions once. I'm trying to think how else you do that. Right, instead of shifting positions, we just have one position. And so I just use this shape because I think it works really well on the banjo, and it's very satisfying. It provides a lot of sustain and legato that I'm after here. And so, of course, to understand better the context of this shape, I attached a full, 2-octave pentatonic, E minor pentatonic scale, descending and ascending, with an exercise, you know. I like that a lot in terms of the shapes, because for me, I think it provides the most sustain and legato. Ascending. And, I could have attached it just as the ascending or descending scale plate straight, but I put it into these cycles just because that, again, more practically fits fiddle repertoire, and I want this to be as applicable as possible. So, furthermore, I think that about covers it for all I want to say. Again, thank you for watching and joining us this year for Licksmas. It's been a pleasure. Make sure to stick around for tomorrow. We have Ricky Meyer showing you some cool stuff. And until then, have a Merry Licksmas and Happy New Year.